Good evening and welcome to another episode of Let's Talk Business. I am your host, Sonny Vinuya, and as always, thank you very much for tuning in. Please remember you can watch us on Facebook, YouTube, and on Amazon Fire TV, and now on KGNG Channel 26.8 TV in Las Vegas. Of course, you can always listen to us on our PHLV app or get our podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. We have another awesome guest tonight, but before we bring her in, well, let's talk business. So small business, as we have mentioned before here in the show, is truly the backbone of Nevada. As of 2022, there are over 300,000 small businesses in Nevada, and more than 500,000 Nevadans are employed by these businesses. So it's only natural that we do all that we can to ensure the success of these small businesses. So how do we do this? Well, number one, by keeping our Nevada one of the top places to start or have a business. We've got great tax facilities. We have no corporate income tax, no personal income tax, minimal employer payroll tax at 0.63% of gross wages, no franchise tax, for example. Workforce, we really devote a lot of effort in developing workforce, trying to find out what's the emerging trends, what are we missing, what are we lacking, and develop programs to build that workforce that's needed. Everybody knows about the lower cost of living in Las Vegas, our best business-friendly climate. You know, we have better LLC requirements, strict privacy practices, low startup costs, and of course, opportunities. I mean, if you're going to start a business, that's what you want. You want opportunities. So even in any different field, healthcare, oh my God, there's so many opportunities in health. Now we've got sports. I mean, we've got so many things with the Ace coming in, hopefully a basketball team also. I mean, just look at what the Raiders coming here. And of course, our Stanley Cup champions, Golden Knights, look at what they've done. And then, of course, there's also the diversification of our economy. That said, there's really a lot of opportunities in there because, number one, as we diversify our economy and as we add all of these other things, our city's growing. And when you grow, the city grows, there's more population, there are more needs as well. So even the ancillary stuff that comes with a community, those are all opportunities for small business. Another reason that makes Nevada stand out is the support that businesses receive from the state government offices. A quick look at the Nevada Governor's Office of Economic Development highlights numerous offerings to new businesses through incentive packages and programs. According to GoEd's website, programs include workforce development programs, which I already mentioned. We have business development and assistance covering tax incentives and opportunity zones. We have innovations-based economic development, providing funds for small businesses and startups. In fact, if you look at GoEd's website, there are 6 new businesses that just got approved just this month to move here into Nevada. We've got international trade grants, emerging small business programs. And then lastly, resources for small business. We have had some of them, in fact, here in our show. We've had SBA, Small Business Administration. We've had SBDC, SCORE, Nevada Co-op. We even had certification people come over here to talk about all the importance of what they do and how they support small businesses and how they become a resource. Another one that we have is the one that we're going to highlight tonight, which is the Office of Small Business Advocacy. For this, we actually have someone who can give us a better understanding of the office. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to bring our guest in and we're going to talk about the Office of Small Business Advocacy. So stand by. We'll be right back.
This is your Filipino radio experience in Las Vegas. PHLV Radio. PHLV.
Welcome back. All right. Without further ado, because I want to spend more time talking to her than introducing her, let me bring in our special guest tonight. She is the director of the Office of Small Business Advocacy, an office that is very special in my heart. Of course, that was my entry point to state service. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome my good friend, Sarah Johnson. Sarah.
Hi. Thanks for having me.
Of course. How are you today?
Doing good. Yeah. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you. Please tell the audience, what exactly does the Office of Small Business Advocacy do, and how do you help small businesses? Just give me an example.
Yeah. So the Office of Small Business Advocacy is out of the Lieutenant Governor's office. Our Lieutenant Governor's name is Stavros Anthony. And so the Office of Small Business Advocacy we're a very lean shop. It's me and my deputy director. Her name is Melissa. She's fantastic. And we focus on helping entrepreneurs who have under 20 employees. Typically, we will help people who have more, but that's kind of who we're targeting.
Sure.
If you're thinking about a business plan or a marketing plan, we're looking at English as a second language. We're looking at minority communities.
Okay.
We're looking at urban communities, and we're looking at businesses under 20 employees. So really the family-run businesses. And when they encounter problems with the government, whether that's state, local, county government, that's when we step in. Maybe it's a regulation or a licensing, or they're being fined and they don't understand what happened.
Yeah.
So a really good example is when I first got started, there was a immigrant food truck owner.
Okay.
And they were actually transitioning from like a cottage industry license, from selling at a farmer's market, and they wanted to transition. They had success, and they wanted to transition to a food truck because they were like, this is working. We've tested the market.
Sure.
We want to go to something bigger.
Yeah.
And so they transferred their license, or so they thought they did, but they ran afoul of Clark County Business Permitting and Southern Nevada Health District because they weren't allowed to basically operate two licenses at the same time.
Ooh, okay.
Is my understanding.
Yeah.
But they were.
Okay.
And so they got fined. Their food truck got plastered with all these signs that they didn't understand. They got fined exorbitant amounts of fees that they didn't have the capability of paying, and they didn't understand what they had done wrong because they tried to do everything right.
Yeah.
But there are so many ways in Clark County and in Nevada to have that misstep.
Sure.
And so we were able to work with them and with Southern Nevada Health District to get them on a payment plan.
Okay.
So, I can't promise that we can take away fees.
Yeah.
But I can promise that we will figure out a way to make it easier for you to either pay the fees or sometimes get those fees reduced.
Yeah.
So we actually got them a temporary permit so they could continue to operate their food truck,
Awesome.
which was their sole source of income.
Yeah.
And then also reduced their fees a little bit and got them on a payment plan so it was more in line with their ability to pay.
Yeah, that is fantastic. Congratulations, that's a good job.
Thank you.
You know that sometimes that's the hard part. I mean, you as a business owner, you're good at what you do.
Yeah.
You're good at what you're passionate with. With them is serving and making food, right? But
And you're
sometimes
doing
you don't
that
know.
business, and you don't have time
Exactly.
to figure out, what am I doing wrong? I don't know. I'm just
Exactly.
trying to serve my customer.
Yeah, and sometimes they don't even know. Like you said, they didn't understand.
No, and they
Yeah.
thought they were doing everything right.
See, that's a great job.
Yeah. So that's like my go-to example of something
Yeah.
that I've worked on. In the first month of starting,
Awesome.
This business owner, this husband and wife came and were like, "What are we supposed to do?"
Yeah. Well, no, that's a good one. Well, the good news is the Lieutenant Governor's bill, SB 24, passed.
It did.
So please tell our audience, what does that mean for you and for the OSBA, or the Office of Small Business Advocacy?
Yeah, so very excited. So this legislative session, SB 24, which reauthorizes the Office of Small Business Advocacy, passed. We tried to put SB 24 in for a, full-on funded by the state government, or funded in the general funds is the way to think about it. But it wound up being funded by OSHA, or not OSHA, COVID relief money.
Okay.
And so it's still, so in the next legislative session, we'll actually be up again for reauthorization, and this one will be for permanent funding.
Okay.
So in the next 2 years, I'm really excited to be able to show Nevada legislators all that we can do to
Yeah.
help the communities that we're targeting, those minority communities,
yeah.
the English as a second language, recent immigrant communities.
Yeah.
Like really targeting them and show them how effective we can be, and how they can use us. I think that's a lot of like the confusion with them is how are you different from business and industry?
Yeah.
And then how can we best use your office? And the best way that I can think about to differentiate ourselves from business and industry is that we're the only state office providing this one-on-one service for entrepreneurs to help them with singular issues happening for them with the state government or the local government.
No worries. We will help you with that.
Yeah.
Because we want this office to stay.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, it's such a good office, and so many other states have this office.
Yeah.
So it's not that means that we should have it, but it definitely means that it's something that's helpful for entrepreneurs.
And of course, I was in your role, so I know how valuable it is, and knowing that, we know how to get people to you. So
yes, yeah.
So tell us, what are the biggest challenges businesses are facing today that you see?
Of course, I mean, everything that you hear, in the news is staffing.
Yeah.
Staffing is a huge concern for a lot of business owners. But I think specifically here in Nevada, they're facing even more issues, and that is, Nevada is notorious. It's great to start a business. We're always rated as one of the best places to start a business for all the things that you talked about in your opening.
Yeah.
Low taxes, no taxes, like a really good structure for that. But one of the things that we're consistently rated as terrible on in Nevada is our licensing and regulations. We're always at the bottom for that. We're like 48th of 50 on regulations and licensing.
Yeah.
And so that's something that our office is really focused on, and that's, we've kind of got 4 pillars with the Office of Small Business Advocacy, as you know. And the piece that I love from my public policy background is that advocacy component, which is, we get these one-on-one, these clients that come in, we help them, but it also triggers something that says, this is an issue. This is a bigger issue than just, client 1 and 2.
Yeah.
This is a big issue, and we need to figure out how we can fix this. And maybe it's an industry that shouldn't be licensed. I'm not talking about interior design here, but that's one.
Yeah.
So we've worked with interior designers.
Yeah.
So that's, and interior design is something that's only licensed in 3 other states, which is crazy.
Jesus. Yeah.
And I mean, we're not talking about people, moving walls and changing plumbing. We're talking about pillows and coordinating colors. And the reason that this is licensed here is, frankly, it's sort of like a cartel.
Yeah.
It's the people who are in the industry wanting to keep out people who want to get in the industry, and so they make these onerous sort of rules and regulations to get them in.
Yeah.
And then of course the government kind of goes along with it because they get paid. So it's this vicious cycle.
It's funny when you say that, because I don't hire interior decorators, and my wife does. So essentially, she's my interior decorator.
Exactly. Yeah.
Do I have to get her licensed?
Yes. And so that is something. So the interior designer that we worked with actually got fined almost $20,000 for operating without a license.
Yeah.
Which, she's an immigrant. She's from South Africa.
Yeah.
And she lived in New York. They weren't. I don't think that they were licensed there. But she did everything that she thought was right. So she got a state business license.
Yeah.
She got a Clark County business license. She got what I call something like a bumper license, which was an interior draftsman license.
Okay.
So she's doing the things that she thinks are right.
Yeah.
And then she had no idea. How could you possibly know that Nevada is one of 3 states in America that requires an interior designer to have a license?
Unbelievable.
And so $20,000.
Well, I'm really hoping that the executive order too that the governor has would really.
So excited.
So it's July now. So they've submitted all the regulations and rules that they needed to remove or review.
Yes.
So I can't wait to see how that
I
will
know.
look like.
I have talked to so many people. It was one of the things that I was so excited when Lombardo started. When our Governor Lombardo started was, his real focus on getting rid of some of these onerous and ridiculous licensing agencies.
Yeah. And there was a bill too, which Andrew Hafen, Assemblyman Hafen, had that I really liked, which would require these boards to take a look at their licensing regulations every 2 years, but it didn't go through, unfortunately. So.
And you have to think, from a public policy perspective, like, why wouldn't that go through?
Yeah, it's a good, because sometimes licensing requirements get old.
They do.
Things change, and then it's just there.
Right.
Why not remove it if it's no longer needed?
That's one of my favorite things. There's an agency called or not an agency, but a nonprofit called the Institute for Justice.
Okay.
And they have this whole entrepreneurship center for entrepreneurship, and I love to read their material.
Yeah.
And all the time they're highlighting archaic or outdated licensing and regulations in different cities and localities. And maybe like one that I read about the other day was, I think it's in Milwaukee. You're not allowed to operate a business out of your garage, and you're not allowed to receive packages for said business at your home. So basically that eradicates or eliminates any home-based business.
Yeah.
And so if you do that business, you're running afoul of the government.
Oh my goodness! You know
So
how
this is
many
what we need to
successful
stop here.
businesses started in a garage?
Absolutely. I mean, you're not just going to start and have 100 employees and have a commercial business.
Yeah.
That's not how most. I mean, the PCs started in a garage.
Yeah.
I think it's Apple started in a garage.
Apple started in a garage. I used to work for Sunglass Hut.
Yeah.
And the current owner now, Mr. Del Vecchio, who's owned Persol Glasses, he started out in the garage.
And that's, I mean, if you watch, I'm sure you watch Shark Tank,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
They're all in their garage.
That's right.
They're all in their garage, and they're all packaging up stuff. So we need to make sure that we are addressing these outdated or archaic licensing and regulations here to make it not only easy to start that business here, but to keep it.
Keep it.
Because it is kind of hard to keep your business here.
I agree with you 100%. Now, in the minority business area, specifically the Asian community, one of our biggest challenges is knowing what's available for small business resources, grants, how to start a business. What would your best advice be for some of these small business owners in finding and understanding these resources?
Yeah, so we don't do any sort of grants or anything like that with the Office of Small Business Advocacy. But I think one of the best resources is the Small Business Administration.
Okay.
They do a lot of women-owned, minority-owned small business grants, and I think that they're a really good resource to finding money.
Yeah.
And they also do a lot of loans as well, and they're backed by the federal government. You can speak more to the money piece than I can with your history in banking, but I think SBA is probably the best place to go to for like a repository of grants.
Yeah. No, that's good advice because, it's true. They have so many different programs. Just getting it out there and for people to know what it is and then for like the Asian business owners to understand the whole process. What it takes or what is it. It's not a scam. It's an actual loan.
Exactly. Yeah. And, you can always reach out to agencies like mine to figure out, because there are people who try and take money from people for doing an application that is a free application.
Yes.
So we want to make sure that people don't get scammed for something like that, because we can help you find the people who will do it. I can't expect someone to work for free, but for minimal amount of money. We see people wanting to get certified to do contracts for the government. And they'll want that minority certification. And people will charge tens of thousands of dollars for these applications. I'm sure you've seen this.
Well, actually, when you said that, I'm so happy that you did. I just know of one case recently where a business owner hired, because they wanted to start a business, but they didn't have a clue, of course, the minutia that goes along with the licensing and all the inspections of this particular field. And they hired a consultant who just took them for a ride.
And there are good ones and there are bad ones. And so I think that's another good avenue is this the minority certification if you want to get into any sort of government contracting, because they're always looking to fill subcontractor roles or, hire minorities to fill these roles. And so that's a really good avenue as well.
So to our small business or aspiring small, please remember that advice. Reach out to Sarah if you need help, and she'll point you to the good people that will help you start that business. So
so while we're not giving out the grants, and we're not, definitely. We can turn you on to good grants, turn you on to the people who do the grants, and keep you from getting scammed.
Perfect. So what would be your best advice to small business owners in finding resources for what they need, such as language translations, more connections, help in scaling their business?
Yeah, so I think the chambers are a really good resource.
Oh, yeah, of course. That's my background, too.
The Asian chambers are really, really great here. The Vegas chamber, the urban chamber, all of these. We've got so many chambers. Henderson Chamber. They're so supportive of small businesses. I know, one of the things that we've done, we actually got our new website up and running. So osbanv.com.
Okay.
And at the bottom, you can switch it to the top 5 languages that are here in Clark County or here in Nevada.
All right.
And Tagalog is one.
Okay.
And, that's just something, that's a very small piece. But, definitely you can come to us, and we have resources available or contacts available who can help with language translation services.
Awesome.
But I think that that's something, we are a minority community here in Clark County.
We are.
And that's something that we really have to start addressing as a government, to make sure that our our licensing and our rules and regulations are in multiple languages. Because if you look at Southern Nevada Health District for their food truck, here's how to operate a food truck in Clark County. It is 80 pages and it's only offered in English, right? So how are you supposed to know what to do?
I'm glad you brought that up. That was a great example. I know what you mean.
It's 80 pages to operate a food truck, right? I mean, come on. We need to figure out how to do this simpler, easier, and in more languages.
The truth of the matter is we want to keep our competitive edge when it comes to business.
We do.
I mean, Arizona's knocking on our door. Utah's knocking on our door. And they're trying to compete with us.
Nashville's knocking on our door. Awesome. All these really good entrepreneurial communities that have that's something else that's really interesting about Clark County specifically, or Southern Nevada specifically. We have a lot of really good Startup NV is really good.
Yeah, that's right.
A lot of really
Startup
good businesses or communities that are focused on helping entrepreneurs and startups.
Yeah.
A lot of them are more tech driven.
Okay.
And so I think. But they're still, the principles are the same.
Yeah.
And you still want these connections. So these are,
Nice.
these are really good resources for people who want to start up a business.
Cool. All right. How can we contact the OSBA? And any final word from you?
Sure. OSBA NV, that's our new website.
OSBA NV.
It is a work in progress. Where we're going for the future for OSBANV.com is a big resources section.
Okay.
It's going to say, it's going to have a bunch of resources for do you want to start a food truck? Here are the things that you need to know. Here are contacts you should have.
Awesome.
Here are rules and regulations, probably only in English, but we're going to start addressing that.
As long as it's there.
Some of the most common things that we see, or the most common things that may not be, like an interior designer. Hey, do you want to be an interior designer? Don't forget to get an interior designer's license.
God, I love that.
So kind of the more popular entrepreneurial industries. So that's coming.
Okay.
So watch out for that. Also, all the social media, OSBA NV, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, we're there.
Awesome.
And then my email address is just Sarah Johnson at ltgov.nv.gov, and happy to answer any questions.
Sarah, thank you so much. Fortunately, it's only a 30-minute
Thanks
show.
for having me.
Time. I really appreciate you coming in.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
More power to you, and I'm so happy that OSBA is here to stay.
Me too. Yeah. I'll come back in 2 years in the next legislative session.
All right. All right, Ardens, good night. Thank you so much for tuning in. Sarah, thank you again.
Thank you.
And we'll see you next week.